Ever felt the presence of something unexplainable? Stay tuned to uncover chilling tales from others who have. When we lost everything, the house, the business, and the fragile sense of security we'd clung to, it felt like the world had turned its back on us. We had no choice but to leave the city behind and start over in a quiet, forgotten village, far from the chaos that had consumed our lives. With what little savings we had left, we bought a narrow plot of land by a trickling stream. It was small, barely enough to hold a few crops, but it was ours. The first year was brutal. The farm barely yielded enough to feed us twice a day, and the isolation weighed heavily on us. But we survived, finding solace in the rhythm of planting, tending, and hoping. Over time, the land started to give more generously, and we felt a faint flicker of hope. For the first time in a long while, we dared to think we might be okay. It was just after our first year there that we found him. One evening, as we sat by the stream enjoying a rare moment of calm, we heard a sound that shattered the quiet, a high-pitched, desperate yelp. My wife and I exchanged a glance before rushing toward the noise. There, tangled in the underbrush, was a small, injured pup. His fur was matted with blood and dirt, and his trembling body told us he'd been through something terrible. His eyes met mine, wide and pleading, and I knew we couldn't leave him there. As I scooped him up, a shiver ran through me. The air felt wrong, too still, too heavy, but I ignored it. We brought him home, cleaned his wounds, and fed him scraps from our meagre dinner. He healed quickly, and soon enough he was bounding around the farm as though he'd always been there. We named him Buddy. He brought a warmth to our lives that we hadn't felt in years, a lightness that made the hard days a little easier. But then, the shadows came. It started on a moonless night, about a month after we found Buddy. My wife had gone to bed early, leaving me to tend to a few chores outside. That's when I saw them, tall, spindly figures moving in the distance. They were coming from the direction of the old cemetery at the edge of the village, their silhouettes barely discernible against the darkness. They didn't come close, they just stood there, watching. My chest tightened as I stared back, but I told myself it was a trick of the light. The shadows became a regular occurrence. Every moonless night they would appear, a little closer each time. Buddy, normally fearless, would growl low in his throat, then bolt off into the woods, only to return at dawn as if nothing had happened. It unnerved us, but we tried to rationalize it. Shadows don't hurt people, we told ourselves. We were wrong. One night, when the figures had come closer than ever, we decided to keep Buddy inside. That was when things changed. At first, it was small, an object falling from a shelf, a door creaking open without anyone near it. Then the whispers started. Faint and unintelligible at first, they grew louder, more insistent, until it felt like they were right next to us, speaking words we couldn't understand. The air grew colder, even though it was midsummer. I woke up one night to find my breath visible in the dark, and the sensation of being watched was so intense I couldn't move. My wife began hearing footsteps in the hall when no one was there, and once we both saw a chair slide across the room on its own. Buddy, sensing our fear, refused to stay inside anymore. He barked at shadows that weren't there, his fur bristling as he paced around the house. But when we opened the door for him, he didn't run back to the woods like before. Instead, he stood by the doorway, waiting as if he'd been ready to leave all along. The final straw came one moonless night. The shadows had come so close they were brushing against the walls of our home. I woke to find my wife standing by the window, her face pale and her eyes wide. "They're here," she whispered. I looked out and saw them. Tall, dark figures, their shapes impossibly thin, their heads tilted as if watching us with silent curiosity. We couldn't stay. The land we'd poured our hope into had turned on us. We packed up what little we had, and as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, we left the house for good. Buddy followed us without hesitation, his tail wagging as if he'd been waiting for this moment. He stayed by our side the entire way, glancing back only once, as though to make sure the house was truly behind us. Even now, I can't shake the feeling that we left more than just a home behind. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I think I can still hear those whispers. Faint, distant, and waiting.
If this chilling tale gave you goosebumps, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. Thank you for tuning in to Ghostly Echoes. Until next time,